Welcome back, YouTube. In this video, we're going to take a look at the current trend that is updating for Doge. We see the liquidity coming back into the market here, and we had mapped out. We're going to zoom in here this trend line a few days ago, and of course it was seeming like we're getting a rejection here from around the 200-day moving average, and then we recovered with some two strong movements. Obviously, this is being reflected across the market. We've seen Bitcoin run up several $1,000s. So obviously, the top 10 coins, there's going to be some spillover here. But it looks like we are headed up to the 72 right now. Obviously, this is going to be very important whether or not we get rejected here. But as far as for this zone, breaking into it with conviction, we certainly have. And this is going to put us at the peak of this zone at around 1481, which is going to put us right on the cusp of around 15 cents. Now, getting this divergence here, obviously having a change in trend, getting a 14 over to 272 moving average, this can certainly reignite that fuel to get that retest up here at some of these higher levels, 18 cents, 22 cents, and then we can start having some bull run discussions here. And I will take a look at Bitcoin as well, because this all kind of like lines up. So this is going to be something we need to look at over the next week here, because we can get a lot of evidence here of a strong trend reversal and start talking about some of these higher numbers here. The biggest thing that we can do now is see if we're going to close above this 72. We could get rejected off of it, but closing inside of this zone, continuing this trend here. This is possibly going to be a new trend. This is just the line that I had here from last time before we broke it. And seeing if we're going to recover here at the 1481, or if we're going to go through it like we did last time and consolidate around that 1631. So this is going to be something we have to kind of monitor here over the next week. We'll get an idea. And obviously, as we start getting some additional evidence with some signals here, we can start talking about some of those higher levels. Let's take a look at BTC. And we are we pretty much use the 72 as a support level, and this is a really good thing here. We had the 14 cross this 200, so we went down below it, pretty much had the sell off, recuperated, didn't close in this zone like we talked about in the last video, and we had the 14 cross the 200 here. Nice golden cross. And then we are having that climb here. Now, obviously, the next big indicator would be the 14 and the 72. And you should see a crossing the 14 and 72. That should put us in trajectory to do a retest, if we're not already higher by then, right? Because we could have like not necessarily a sell-off, but we could have some sideways movement, something similar to here, where this still causes the 14-day to actually rise. The 14 crossing the 200 is not I'm not saying it's not a strong signal, but it's not difficult to do, because 200 has a lot more days as far as running the average. But this does mean that because the 200 is now in the top zone here for this cycle, this does mean that we are consolidating and holding that higher high as far as we're in this zone. So that's always a good signal here, that we haven't crashed down, or we didn't stay up here long enough to kind of curve the 200 back into some of these lower zones. That's always a good sign for strength here over the long term. So what we're going to be looking for is some retest here. Obviously, keeping an eye on momentum, possibly somewhere around like that 70,000 range. We got several rejections here. Well, not several, but many rejections here, especially if you look at some of the lower time frames. You'll see like many rejections here around like 70,000 range. So this is something we're going to have to look at going forward to see as far as we're getting rejections here, and kind of keep an eye on like these moving averages to see where we're consolidating at. But overall, this all looks good. This looks like a great repositioning here to have a retest across the board here. And obviously, Bitcoin is going to be something to look to get an idea for the markets here. But liquidity is flowing into the market. It looks promising. And obviously, we're just going to have to kind of keep track to see how it's flowing across the board. Let's take a look here at coin market cap at the trends. 2.45 trillion overall. So over $1 billion in volume. Excuse me, over 23 billion in volume for Bitcoin. See trends here. Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, Solana looks good. XRP had a stronger run up, but it appears to kind of be getting back on track. Doge is having a spike as well. That is, it's not having that flattening like a lot of these others here. Like if you look on the cusp where the cursor is here, you'll see kind of like this flattening in other trends, but Doge is just going straight up. So we could see some additional. I know typically when we have like a pump here, retail gets excited and the community gets rejuvenated. So you'll see it can break trend typically to the upside here because if you compare Doge to some of these other coins up in here, as far as for retail or the amount of people that have those coins, then it'll be a lot higher now. So some of the people who have like Solana and Ethereum, the amount per person can be higher, but as far as for the volume of people, I'm pretty sure Doge is still top dog as far as for volume of people outside like Bitcoin or Ethereum in the top 10. So you can see some divergence here sometimes in the trend, especially when it gets bullish. It'll be some divergence, but it's typically to the upside. And you can kind of see here like Timecoin, it's the flattening. Cardano is somewhat doing his own thing, a little more of a sell-off here instead of the flattening, but overall, these are following here. Even if you go down to Shiba, Avalanche, you'll see similar trends overall. So money's coming into the market, right? It's across the board. This is obviously a great repositioning that we're seeing. I think this is early to say greed, but we'll see here. If your greed index has now put us into barely, but it put us into the greed category. I think that's a little premature, but we'll see, right? But I think that we are on the cusp here of getting some serious data here, so we can start talking about some of these higher numbers, and that's really what's going to matter here in the long term. Let's take a look here at a little deeper data. Short liquidations last 24 hours. Per exchange, right? OKX, Binance, Bybit, to name a few. 2 million quotes. Again, it's not everything, but this is short liquidation 2 million compared to 459K in longs. So we're seeing more shorts come out. Let's see, long short ratio. Now, this was very interesting. This is one of the things that I was talking about a few months ago. People were saying, how do you know when you're looking at like trend reversals or like some of those bigger battles coming on? Because for the longest, it just seems like everything was 75-25. People were like, oh, why do you look at that data? And I was like, well, there'll be a day that'll come. Well, it'll change. And this is what we're seeing here now. So now, obviously, this is, I'm going to see, especially until the market starts breaking and holding some of this, you'll see spikes in shorts and stuff like that, especially in the short term. It's going to say, okay, well, we believe it's going to go back down. And they're going to try and capitalize off of it. It's kind of like bulls. Not everybody pivots early, and same thing with shorts. Not everybody's going to pivot early. Every time there's a rally, they're like, oh no, it's a false flag. It's going to go back down, and you'll see shorts kind of spike up there. And I believe this is similar to what we're seeing here the last day or so. On the 5 minute, 32% were short, 67% were long, 67, 32 on the 30, 67, 32 an hour, 68, 31 on the 4 hour, and 69, 30 on the 1 day. So people were saying, oh, these numbers don't move. Yes, they do. Just kind of keep an eye on them. It's not always 75, 25. And that certainly gives you a feel for what's going on. So again, not all inclusive, but it certainly helps. Open interest change on the 24 hours, 17.28%. That is good. Typically, what a good range here kind of gives you an idea where things are rolling at is because this is roughly around 100 million more, 120 million more than we checked a few days ago. But what we're typically looking at when we're getting the ball really rolling is probably around like 800 to like 900 million. We get around that billion mark. That's when things are really pumping there. And that's kind of what we're looking at around like 22 cents. So when we get an idea, as long as we're seeing a trend similar to this one, excuse me, I forgot I'm not on Trading View, but we get a trend similar to this one here. We start getting like to around $750 million. Then we can start converging some of that data with what we're seeing in different charts. And it kind of gives us an idea of the momentum. We can start talking about those option contracts that are going on, possibly. I know the big thing would be obviously getting like those futures on there, getting those guaranteed buys versus something like an option where you don't have to execute it. A lot of those things kind of come into play when we talk about the longevity of the coin. Biggest thing being obviously utility. X integration certainly would help, but riding the market cycle, having that institutional allocation of what we're seeing here, all that is really positive for the coin, staying on trend, not having a divergence from the market. All that plays a big part as far as we're doing, just ascending with the market versus being left behind. So what we're seeing here overall is really great for the coin, really great for the longevity of the coin here, and being able to participate in the market here if this is in fact the evidence that we're seeing a turn of tides in the market. So this is certainly something that we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on going forward, especially with like the next week or so, to see if we're going to maintain these levels, if we're going to have a cool off period, or if we're just going to go up and do some retest on some of these higher levels here. Not necessarily saying challenge the all-time highs or the highs of this market, but challenge some of the levels in between, because we do have, for Bitcoin and for Doge, there's other pivot points between where we are now and 73,000 for Bitcoin and 22 cents for Doge. There's other important levels that we have to beat in between those numbers. So, but as we progress, we can start talking about some of those numbers here and get an idea of the strength of this move, and also kind of get an idea of what we're looking at for peak bull run. So one of the things I'm looking forward to, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Please leave a comment below. We do have time still to beat Bitcoin to 100,000. So if you can help with that, please consider subscribing to the channel. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you guys in the next video.